To our webinar today. Say hello in the chat when you hop on. We have a great webinar today. We have Cheryl in the house. We have Dr. Saunders. I'm Leslie. If you've never been here before, we're excited that you're here. Today, we're going to talk about a really fun and exciting thing. I'm just making sure YouTube is working. Yes. Okay. Here's a fun thing. We record all of these. So if you miss something, if you need to run to the restroom or get a snack, something healthy, right? Know that you can come back and watch the replay in case you miss any of this. But it's Barton Publishing Webinars is our YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch these at any point. But we're going to chat about Berberine today. And I'm excited about this because I feel like every time we have brought up Berberine, we find out more benefits to it, more things that people are using it for. I saw a really fun Instagram post the other day where someone said, "Tell me your weirdest, most strange home cures that have worked from," I mean, we're talking like
Decade.
drinking urine
Oh,
to, you know what I'm saying? Like weird stuff. So I feel like that happens with berberine. I feel like every time we talk about it, someone tells us something interesting. So I'm excited to chat about this. Dr. Saunders is a wonderful medical doctor, but he is not your doctor. So please discuss these things with your provider before you implement any of the weird things we may say today. It's pretty likely that we'll say something strange or someone will comment with something strange. So just be aware of that. All right, let's dig into this. This is episode number 286 today. So, lots of wonderful topics, primarily focusing on heart health, type 2 diabetes, and then other random home health type things that we have found to be really interesting or have been written in our Home Cures that Work publication. So, here we go. Where do we even start with berberine? First of all, how about what is berberine? Where does it come from?
okay. So berberine is not like a plant itself. It's not like an herb. It's found in herbs, some herbs. It is a compound that comes from different plants. So golden seal. So a lot of herbalists say, well, golden seal is good for this, it's good for that, and there's so many good uses for golden seal. If you're an herbalist, and a lot of that, I'm going to tell the truth. The golden seal is the effective berberine, but it's also found in the barberry plant and Oregon grape, which also have been used for centuries, millennia. These plants have been used to help people with all kinds of illnesses. So it's a natural compound that's found in a lot of different plants.
Okay, so it's funny when we were first coming out with our berberine product, I remember one of the guys on the marketing team kept calling it, where what does the plant come from? Burberry.
Barberry.
Barberry. They kept calling
Yeah.
it barberry,
Yeah.
barberine. And so we are really struggling with that. So it's kind of funny that we're digging into this. I want to show you this before I forget. So I'm just going to pull up our product here. If I can get this to work correctly. So this is bartonnutrition.com. So this is where we have all of our supplements and some of our ebooks and all of that kind of thing. But we have created berberine. How long ago do you suppose we did this?
Oh, a couple of years ago.
Has it been
No,
that long already?
no, 3 or 4 years ago. It's been a while.
Wow.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Cheryl.
No, I just want to know why Dr. Saunders wanted to add berberine as one of our products.
Yeah.
Okay. So we were doing some research on diabetes, right? And that's kind of where we were like focused on diabetes. So we were looking at what to put in our diabetes supplement because we were looking for a supplement to recommend. We had like other companies that were saying, oh, ours is good, ours is good. But most of them were like what we call fairy dusting, where you have just tiny amounts of like a million different nutrients, and this is all good for diabetes, but it wasn't like the right amounts, and so we came up with Synachroma. But as we were researching this, and we thought, should we use cinnamon or should we use berberine? And for as our herbal part of the Synachroma. Um, because berberine is really good for diabetes. But then as we're talking about it, well, diabetes, berberine is also good for a lot of other things. And so we don't want to have like a diabetes supplement with berberine. We have to have a separate berberine because there's a whole bunch of different uses for it. So that's why we're having a whole webinar on it. This is not a one size or a one thing like a one trick pony, they call it, right? It's berberine is not. Berberine has a lot of uses.
All right, let's dig into some of these uses. So with a simple Google search, or maybe you're going to ask ChatGPT, what is berberine really used for? It says it's most commonly used for diabetes, which I think is interesting. We have actually, let's do this. If you're on the webinar right now and you are using berberine for diabetes, would you let us know? Comment in the chat. Tell us how you're using it. I have heard people, remember, I'm not a doctor. I'm just sharing some things that I've heard. But I have heard people say I switched my metformin for berberine. I hear that quite a lot. Is that something you're hearing in your practice, or maybe that you would even recommend, Dr. Saunders?
Yes, as a matter of fact, they have a very similar mechanism of action, but berberine does not cause damage to the cell. So if you're taking metformin and it's blocking your cell from using sugar, and because of the way it works, it blocks the mitochondria from making energy as much. So you don't get the benefits like when you're exercising on metformin. You're not going to increase the number of mitochondria in your muscle cells. So you're not getting benefit from it. Whereas with berberine, you get clearly it still works. So they work in the same way, but they work on the same enzyme, but not in the same way. There's an enzyme called AMPK, adenosine monophosphate kinase, and that kinase means it puts a phosphate on there. And when you have a lot of this AMP, that tells your body to take up more glucose, tells your cells take up more glucose, and it allows you to use fat for energy. So that sounds like two good things that you want to do in diabetes. And they are, but because of the limiting factor of preventing it from going into ATP, the metformin can be toxic, whereas the berberine is not. So I think it's better.
I do hear a lot of people, and feel free to comment about this. There are some unpleasant side effects sometimes to metformin. And I will say, when Dr. Saunders talks about metformin, you're not pro use drugs first option a lot of times. But metformin isn't a drug that you're really scared of,
No,
right?
right?
It, it's an it's an option.
Yeah.
But I probably hear worse things from those of you on the webinar than I do from Dr. Saunders about metformin. I hear a lot of people say men, there are some male problems sometimes with metformin that I hear a lot about from you guys. Some other bathroom issues. I'm trying to say these in the best way. Um, and so there are a lot of side effects. And even for myself, I think, boy, I'd rather try berberine first and see how that works for me. Another thing that I have found in a Google search is that people are using this when they have high levels of cholesterol or other fats in the blood. Have you found that to be true?
Yeah. Berberine, aside from working on the AMPK that we talked about for diabetes, it also works on an enzyme that makes LDL cholesterol. So it lowers the LDL, which is called the bad cholesterol. It's not really bad, but if it's really high, then if it's out of balance, then you don't want that to be high. And berberine lowers it. So yeah, it actually works for cholesterol too.
I think at one time we were maybe talking about berberine as sort of like this fountain of youth.
Mhm.
What is that? Where does that come from?
Um, all of the effects of berberine are like making you like act like a younger person metabolically. So it's the metabolism. You have sort of a younger type of metabolism on berberine, as opposed to the old and sludgy metabolism that you have as an old person, right? Because of its effect on the AMPK, the ability to make ADP and then ATP, then you can make more energy. You can use that energy more efficiently. And so because you can burn fat, then you can lose weight on it too. So it's not just like uh, lowering cholesterol, for example. You actually burn more fat when you're using berberine.
Yeah, that was going to be my next comment. A lot of people I hear are using it for weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
So very interesting. I
Mm-hmm.
think Cheryl had posted something here. Oh yeah, any other things, Cheryl, maybe that
Well, we have an article on berberine that Dr. Saunders wrote already a few years ago. And one of the things you talk about is it's good for infection.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell-
So one of the things that berberine does, it's antioxidant, and it can improve the immune system and help get rid of infections. So people with chronic infections like Lyme disease, chronic Epstein-Barr virus, chronic viral illnesses, berberine is amazing for that. It really helps your own immune system remove chronic infections.
Would you advise taking synochroma and berberine?
Yes, and that's why we didn't put them together, because you can take berberine for all these other reasons, like somebody with Alzheimer's, for example, dementia. It has, because of its effect on improving insulin sensitivity, it would be a great idea for someone um, with early Alzheimer's or dementia. Another thing is cancer. If people with cancer, the berberine is a great adjunct treatment. It's not like chemotherapy, but it's a great adjunct treatment because cancer needs sugar for energy, and the berberine blocks that AMPK, so that it limits or prevents the cancer from growing because it doesn't have enough energy. Whereas your normal cells can use fat for energy. And that's where the advantage of like weight loss and diabetes and Alzheimer's disease come in, is that you start using more fat for energy, whereas insulin blocks you from using fat for energy. Berberine helps you use fat for energy. So your normal cells are going to be okay, but the cancer cells aren't going to survive.
What about it for inflammation?
Yeah, it is an anti-inflammatory. So it works in like arthritis, lupus, all kinds of inflammatory conditions. It's been used in colitis, like people with intestinal inflammation, chronic. And it's a very good supplement. Part of the reason it works in colitis is it's really good for putting back the normal bacteria in your colon. And so those colon bacteria start producing what are called butyrates, the short chain fatty acids that decrease inflammation. So it has its own anti inflammatory effect, and it helps grow good bacteria.
I'm going to share this screen one more time here. We're going to go to bartonnutrition.com. I want to look at our version of berberine. We've included milk thistle with it. Why is that?
Um, the advantage, so berberine is not really well absorbed. It's poorly absorbed, and so I know it says right there, take 2 capsules once a day, but it's better to actually to spread them out because it has a short half-life.
Hmm.
It only works for a few hours. So spreading it out, taking it twice a day, and then the milk thistle helps the liver to detox better. So it prevents any metabolic damage or anything to the liver.
Okay, interesting. If you're interested in berberine, you can go to bartonwebinar.com, use code webinar 25, one word, webinar 25 to save 25% on that. What else was I going to ask? Now, was berberine one of those supplements that you had kind of recommended maybe taking it for a while and then taking a break?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That is something definitely to consider. Um, some people, they think, if some is good, more is better, and if a little bit is okay, then longer is better, and that's not necessarily the case. In this case with berberine, it's a good idea to take it intermittently. So taking it for 5 days on, 2 days off, or even 7 days on, 7 days off, that kind of thing. When you have it and then you don't, and there's a difference there, that's how the body equilibrates and makes things function better. So when you have a lot of something and then none, when you have none that's going, hey, wait, I don't have that anymore. And then your body's own mechanisms start taking over to do that function. And then you get it again, and then you can improve and improve and improve by taking it intermittently instead of continuously.
Okay. Let's see.
There's other things. I mean, if you just look at PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, is a common problem. It's an adrenal problem, and you say, wait a minute, how does it help that? Well, because it makes you more insulin sensitive. That's where the adrenal glands, the adrenal hormones, stress hormones, cause you to be insulin resistant. We've talked about that a lot. Well, this reverses that process, which PCOS starts, of the insulin resistance part. So no, it doesn't fix your hormones, but because it fixes the insulin resistant part, it actually can improve the PCOS, because most of the problems are due to insulin resistance.
Elliot said, can doctor go over the combination of metformin with berberine?
Okay. You can take metformin with berberine. That it's okay. It's not going to have bad interactions. However, if you're taking berberine, you probably don't need metformin. And so my rule is, when I put somebody on berberine, or when I take them off metformin, I put them on berberine. That's my rule.
Okay. This always comes up, but I think it's great if you share this. What is on the left side of your face, Dr. Saunders?
Oh, that is cancer. I'm using the BEC5 cream. There's like several ways to do it. You can remove it surgically, and I don't want to have surgery. So and I explained it to several other people before. So what happened was that I didn't cut my hair back, and so I had it on there before, and I got rid of most of the cancer, but there was this little part that was under the hair that didn't get fixed. So now I'm getting rid of that.
How long did it take you to do that?
It takes about 6 weeks.
Okay.
The faster way to do it is that other cream. So there's another cream you get from the dermatologist. The one I'm using is the over-the-counter one. It's the natural one. It's actually a eggplant extract.
What is the name of it again?
It's Curaderm. BEC5. And there's two different kinds. So the brand that I'm using is Curaderm. That's the original one, and it works. It takes a little longer than the 5-FU, 5-fluorouracil. I should say it that way.
I was like, jeepers, you're so angry.
5-fluorouracil you get from the dermatologist, and that is it's a toxic cream. That's fluorouracil. Is a toxin for dividing cells, so it blocks cells that are dividing. And if you use it every day, it'll make your skin really red, because it like burns you, but it's killing the cells that are growing, which cancer cells are growing faster, right? So those are the ones that are going to die off faster. And generally, there's different ways of using 5-fluorouracil, but you'd put it on for 3 days in a row, and then wait a week, and then three more days, and then wait a week, and then over time you're killing off your Well, precancerous lesions is really what that's primarily used for.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to just see if there's anything else for berberine specifically on here. Alexander says, does berberine provide any benefits to those suffering from frequent acid reflux?
Oh, I don't know. You know what? Um, Anyone who has frequent acid reflux should find out why, because that's not normal. And um, sometimes it's the adrenal glands, in which case berberine is not going to really help that. Sometimes it's a problem with inflammation in the stomach. Like some people have an infection called Helicobacter pylori, and that would need to be fixed. Some people have histamine problems, histamine intolerance or allergies or something. And histamine actually causes you to make more acid, and so you get acid reflux. So sometimes it's the sphincter and sometimes it's the acid. And I don't think berberine fixes any of those. So finding out what is the problem and why it's happening is the first step.
Okay.
I
If
did
you
see.
guys could, oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, you're probably going to say this, but there are two questions about berberine in the webinar chat instead of the Q&A. Is Nerval oh, I lost it. Would berberine help with neuropathy, or would the treatment be Nervala?
Nervala would be the best treatment for neuropathy. Berberine can help in the sense of being able to use fat for energy, being able to get more energy into the nerve cells, but that doesn't really fix the nerve. Nervala would be a better choice because you got to get the circulation, and that's where Nervala works best.
And then the next question is, should you take a break from berberine? Any problems for long-term use?
Yeah, take a break. Take it like 5 days on, 2 days off. That's a great way to do it. Simple, easy, and no issues.
Okay. I was actually just posting. If you guys can post your questions in the Q&A, that would be wonderful. Then I won't miss them. All right, let's go through some more of these. Okay, Anonymous said I'm in phase 3 of your diabetes solution kit. First of all, awesome. If you're in
Mhm.
phase 3, that means you're doing pretty darn well. Uh, it says, I have been taking daily supplements for over 3 months. Should I wean myself to taking them all weekly? If so, how and when? I've been taking Cinechroma, berberine, lean apple cider vinegar, healthy heart, omega-3, fiber greens. My doctor also has me taking a low dose statin, 5 milligrams, and calcium and vitamin D3.
Huh. Okay. And calcium and vitamin D3. Okay. So most of those should be taken with food. So in the morning is a better choice because that's when you have all the mechanisms for digesting, absorbing those nutrients. Um, Synochroma, yeah, morning with food, same thing. Yeah, okay. So your question is, should you take it every week? Or should you take it all the time? So Synochroma is actually formulated for a daily dose, and that includes vitamin D, selenium, chromium, and vitamin K. And the doses of all those are just, it's like your daily multivitamin. And so you could stay on one Synochroma a day in the morning. That's a good idea. Um, Nervala, on the other hand, might be taken once a week. Once you don't have neuropathy, your blood sugar is controlled, you're in phase 3, that would be once a week. Berberine is better, like we talked about, 5 days on, 2 days off, that kind of thing is a good idea. And, you know, I don't have a problem with it long term, even. But if you're not having any issues at all with blood sugar or anything that you might be concerned about, if you're concerned about PCOS, then you would just continue on it. Or if you're concerned about cognitive problems, then you just continue on it. But if it's just blood sugar and you can measure blood sugar, no, I'm perfect, I'm fine, don't need it, then you can go off that one too. But berberine isn't something that you would take, once a week kind of thing. Either you're on it and taking it daily, or maybe 5 days on, 2 days off, or you're off it.
All right. Next question. Elliot said, what do you think about beets? I've been taking Force Factor, not knowing if it helps.
Okay, so the reason beets come up a lot is because they have the ability to make something called nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is something that dilates your blood vessels, allows better blood flow, lowers blood pressure, improves heart health, maybe because it lowers blood pressure and improves blood flow. So nitric oxide is used locally, and beets provide the what's necessary for the body to make that nitric oxide in whatever local part of the body that it's being made. Uh, so um, beets are great; they're fine. But I mean, think about this: if you have type 2 and you're on phase 1 of the program, then you're going to find that beets take up a lot of your carb allowance. uh, so that may not be the best. You can actually use other things. We have a supplement, Healthy
In
Heart.
Healthy Heart.
Yeah, and that has beets in it also.
I'm actually going to look that up. I'm just curious. Oh my goodness. 13 grams of carbs in 1 cup of beets.
Yeah.
I mean, they're good though. So not everyone loves beets. I do know that. Okay, let's
My
see.
mom makes something called borscht,
Uh,
but it's a beet soup.
Yep.
She loves it.
Okay. Judy said, does metformin cause leg cramps?
Metformin cause, you know what? It actually can. Metformin, because it inhibits the ability to make energy. If you don't have enough energy, then your muscles can cramp up and they don't relax very well. So yeah, actually, that's one of the things, one of the issues um, that metformin has.
Right. Let's see. KJ says, curious, my blood glucose levels stay right around 85 to 100 overnight and about 90% of my waking hours, but I experience 3 spikes during the day up into the 130, 150 range exactly 3 times a day at approximately the same times, around 10:30, 2:30, and 5:30. What is confusing is that this happens even when fasting. Currently, I do 24 hours once a week and 72 hours once a month. I just started thinking, are those stressful times in your day? Could be.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. The body is so amazing. Okay, so think of blood sugar instead of thinking it as an absolute number. Just think of it as sort of a concept. And your glucose is something we can measure, and you have a level, and as it changes, then there's a lot of hormones in your body that change your blood sugar. And it's not just insulin. There's glucagon, which is telling your liver to make more sugar. So while you're fasting, then your blood glucose drops down, and or at a certain time of day, or when you're stressed or whatever, you release glucagon, and your liver spits out a whole bunch of glucose, and so your blood glucose goes up. It's that is very interesting how that happens, but it's still an indicator. When it goes up that high, it's still an indicator that you have some insulin resistance. It should stay between 70 and 90, and then after a meal, it can go up to 100 or so, 110 maybe, but then come right back down between 70 and 90. So you still have the same range that you want to shoot for. But it's just interesting that, yes, even while you're fasting, it can go up.
All right, Stella said, if I would go on a fast and my glucose gets too low, what would you suggest to do?
if you're fasting and and you're not using insulin, so you're not injecting insulin, so you have no exogenous insulin, you're just getting the insulin from your pancreas, your blood glucose can get a little low. It might get into the 50s, and you might feel that. Some people get irritable from having the blood glucose get low. So the question of it gets too low. What is too low? There's some research on rats where they took diabetic rats and they brought their blood sugar down to 40 and kept them at 40 for 3 days. And after 3 days, they did a biopsy of their blood-brain barrier and found 10 times the number of glucose transport proteins to get glucose into the brain. So the brain wasn't starving anymore. But it took a few days of having this low blood sugar for them to get to that point. So yeah. So your question for me is, if it gets low, what should I do? Well, I've often recommended in the past to have something available, some almonds or some carrots or something. That you don't want to drink orange juice. Don't do what most people say. Yeah, eat some honey, drink orange juice, because that shoots up the sugar really fast and then drops it really. So that you'll be chasing blood sugar around. But if you have something that has a lot of fiber in it, like carrots, then it'll bring your blood glucose up, and it'll probably spike a little bit, but it's not going to drop super low quickly.
Okay. Anonymous said, if I have my glucose levels under control, can I stop taking metformin and simply replace it with berberine? No, I haven't noticed any side effects with metformin. If so, what is the recommended dosage of berberine?
Okay, so the answer is, can you? I would say, well, from a general medical perspective, yeah, of course. But again, you should work with your doctor. I don't know what your specific numbers on, but remember, I'm talking to people generally. Yes, that would be a good thing. So when you go to your doctor, you say, my blood glucose is normal now. I want to get off metformin. They'll generally say, oh yeah, fine. With normal blood glucose, you wouldn't need that anymore. And then your dose of berberine is going to be about 500 milligrams twice a day.
Is it something you take with food, without food, for food?
Yeah, generally with food. It's not well absorbed, and you need some fat to absorb it, so you take it with food.
All right.
Can it improve
Oh,
sleep?
go ahead.
Say it again.
Can it improve sleep? That's something we haven't talked about, whether or not berberine is good for sleep.
Wow, that's a good question. It's anti-inflammatory. Yeah. I don't. I've never heard of it being used for sleep. I don't know.
Okay, so Frank and Pat have some numbers that you may want to look at. This is in the Q&A. Should be the first one that pops up for you. But it says started phase 1 with a fasting glucose of 9.6, A1C of 7, insulin fasting 91, C-peptide 875. Ended phase 1 successfully on September 5th of this last year with an A1C of 4.7, fasting glucose 4.7, insulin fasting 12, C-peptide 362. Blood test on December 12th, A1C 4.8, fasting glucose 4.7, insulin fasting 10, C-peptide 308. And recently, May of 26, I wonder if that was maybe March, because we haven't hit May yet. March 26 of 2025, it says. A1C 4.9, insulin fasting 8, C-peptide 323. My doctor says great, but the insulin and C-peptide are low, or LO. Can you comment on the fasting insulin and C-peptide being, does that mean lower? I don't know what does LO mean? As my doctor commented.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So that is great what you've done. Think about what you've done from your A1C being seven. That's an average blood glucose. Well, you have the fasting glucose 9.6. That's pretty high. So that's Canadian numbers. In US numbers, 9.6 would be in the almost 200 range. It would be around 200. And C-peptide 875. That's really high. And then it comes down to 323. 308 was the lowest, the C-peptide, with the fasting insulin 8. Okay, so an ideal fasting insulin should be about 5. So the idea of the fasting insulin, when you look at the numbers in laboratories, they take an average fasting or average insulin, and you have to consider that a majority of Americans, generally Canadians, Americans, Mexicans, anyone in anyway, most of the world at this point are insulin resistant. And so with this mild insulin resistant, they're going to tend to have higher numbers. So when they do this bell curve and they show you this is normal, normal is not optimal. Okay, normal is not optimal. So when they see fasting insulin less than 10, they go, oh, that's getting low on the low side. But actually, your fasting insulin should be around 5. In fact, 3 is good. 3, 5, 7, somewhere in there is fine. And your fasting insulin of 8 is great. So no, you're not low. The C-peptide is clearly you're in the normal range now. So they say 0.3 is low. They use different numbers. On my lab, it would be, well, I don't know, the C-peptide 323. My lab uses different numbers. We have 0.8 to 1.2 is the fasting, the optimal. Anyway, I'm looking at just the difference between where you started, 875 with a fasting insulin of 91. 91 is a lot of insulin. That's really high. And then you going down to a fasting insulin of 8 is wonderful. It's remarkable. And you know what? That's very healthy. The less insulin you have, actually, the better, as long as you can keep your blood glucose normal. So if your blood glucose, for heaven's sakes, your hemoglobin A1C is 4.9, was down to what, 4.6? I don't know. Wait. So yeah, hemoglobin A1C 4.9. That is awesome. So I think that's you've done really well, and no, you're not too low.
Okay, there was another note on there. I don't know if you addressed this yet. It says, is it okay to stay on the 610 schedule with 2 meals a day?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, it's better. Yeah, that's much better. If you eat breakfast and lunch and skip dinner, that's a really good way to go.
Pat also says, I've stopped using the berberine. Is that okay? Morning fasting glucose 4.7 to 5.4.
4.7 to 5.4. Yeah, that's okay. So the optimum glucose from those numbers is between 4 and 5. So yeah, staying in there, that's reasonable.
Also a note, it says, thank you, Dr. Saunders and team. I haven't missed a webinar since and have been totally drug-free since starting phase 1.
Good for you.
Very awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Carol says the berberine I have taken has been 1,200 to 1,300 milligrams. Why is yours so much lower?
Because the 1,200 to 1,300 or those numbers, because berberine is not well absorbed and you're taking it once a day, then they usually have higher numbers. But part of the problem is the half-life. And so what we wanted to do was to have like cut it in half. You have half the dose, and you take it twice, so that you can take it twice a day. because that works better. It's when somebody has type 2 diabetes and they want to control their blood sugar, it's better to have to take it twice a day.
Okay. Anonymous said, I had a 10.4 A1C about 90 days ago and have cut carbs to 30 or less, not net. I have been pulled from glipizide 10 milligrams twice a day to not taking any. At first, my blood sugar was up around 200, now around 120 and 90 at night. What A1C number should show good progress? I'm still on 1 milligram of Ozempic. Should I ask the PP to cut the level of Ozempic in half no matter what the A1C comes in at? Thanks.
I would see the issue with Ozempic is it causes um, you to release more insulin and makes you more insulin resistant. And so that's why they say if you start this, you can never go off it. Because as soon as you go off it, then um, you start gaining the weight back because you're more insulin resistant. And so actually, it's a good idea to take out Ozempic. That's really not a healthy thing to do. Glipizide also does the same thing, causes you to make more insulin. So that was great to get off of that. But your question was, what should your A1C be? And from 10.4, boy, anything is better. If it's 8, wow. But you're shooting for a 5.0. That's what you're looking for.
All right. Okay, Jamie had said it was 100 milligrams, okay, a day.
Berberine. Yeah, so 100 milligrams of berberine, it's not very well absorbed, and so you probably need more than that. So it's usually around 1,000 milligrams a day. So if you're taking, 500 milligrams twice a day is okay, or they make those 1,300 milligrams that you take once a day.
Jamie had said, what is berberine HCl?
Yeah, that's berberine.
Same as
It's
berberine. Okay.
yeah, HCl is the hydrochloric acid that they use.
Okay. Anonymous said, will taking organic apple cider vinegar with meals prevent stomach acid reflux?
Um, Sometimes it does. There's so many factors that go into this. So finding out why you have reflux is the first thing. You may find, though, that taking apple cider vinegar does shut down the acid somewhat and prevents you from getting acid reflux. So it's a thought, but it's not the only reason. So it's a good idea for anyone that has acid reflux to find out why you have it and then deal with the reason why.
If you were hanging out at the beginning of the webinar, I was mentioning an Instagram reel about share with me all your weird remedies that you've tried. And one of the ladies did say that when they have an apple in the evening, they no longer have reflux. And I think Joe's maybe father experienced the same thing. And the lady even said, even if I miss taking the apple and I feel the acid reflux coming on, I go get an apple and it goes away. Now, she did mention a specific apple. I don't remember which one, but I find it very interesting.
So I have a theory about that. When Joe was telling me about his dad, how he first went through that and was just taking a quarter of an apple and that's all he ate. When you eat something sweet, you make a hormone in your stomach called cholecystokinin, and that would be the other one. Darn, there's another hormone. It shuts off the acid production in your stomach, so the sweet taste stops you from making acid. That's why you shouldn't have sweets with protein, because you need the acid to denature the protein so you can cut it up and digest it. And you don't digest it as well if you have sweet with protein. And so the sweet apple can shut off the acid production and then you won't have acid reflux.
Yeah, this is making me wonder if sometimes after you get done eating, you crave something sweet.
Yeah, I do.
Is it because your body's saying, I'd like to shut off the acid? Wait, no, I don't know. I think I'm just justifying something. But it does make me think, the body's really amazing if you can listen to its cues and follow it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, next question here. Okay, Anonymous said, I had a diagnosis of neuropathy about 2 years ago. I was not prescribed any medication. I have strong pulse in my ankles, but I still have tingling and stiffness in my feet and ankles.
Okay. So that is an important thing. So the what you're bringing up is something very important, and that is circulation. So you're saying, I have good pulses. What the heck? Because it's not the macro circulation, the big blood vessels, the ones you can see and feel and have pulses in. It's the micro circulation. It's the little teeny ones that you can't see without a microscope that blood needs to flow through to get those nutrients, the oxygen and everything to the nerves. So the problem is microcirculation. So you still use the Nervala with the alpha lipoic acid and the benfotiamine to improve the microcirculation so that you can get the nutrients there.
Right. This is good. Julie said, I've been on phase 1 for 8 months now, going from an A1C of 11.3 to 6.9 in 6 months. That is awesome. Sugar number's still not below 100. Is it safe to be on phase 1 long term like this? Will my body eventually return to non-diabetic state? I'm still so sensitive to carbs.
Yeah. Okay. So for some people, like everybody's different, right? Your metabolism is a little different. And what you've done to go from 11 to 6 in 6 months is amazing. And you know what? When you go to your doctor and the doctor has these medications available, and the medications can lower A1C by 1 point or 2 points, and you've dropped 5 points. It's just the doctor should say that's a miracle.
Mhm.
like you've done something that's amazing that I couldn't do with medicine. So what you've done is really great. And your question is, can I be non-diabetic? The answer is yes. Um, phase 1 may not get you there because, well, for other reasons, like protein. Some people, they get really good at making protein into sugar. And so that keeps their blood sugar elevated. And so any little bit of carbs is going to shoot their sugar up, and they don't lose their insulin resistance. And then finding things that get in through your diet, things that you don't realize are raising the blood sugar. So if you used a continuous glucose monitor, you'd be able to see how different foods affect your diet. It can work better if you're exercising. And so if you increase your exercise, you use up the glycogen in your body. And that's the idea, to use up the glycogen to get rid of all that excess sugar that's stored in the cells so that you become sensitive to insulin again. And so, of course, another thing would be fasting. If you were to fast periodically, we have somebody who checks in here, I'm sure she's here today, that tells us that she's been doing a 3-day, once a month fast. It didn't really change her diet, just doing 3-day, once a month fast. And over a year or so, has gradually dropped down her hemoglobin A1C. Fasting is a wonderful way to become non-diabetic. And in fact, I often tell patients that come in with diabetes, look, there's a lot of different ways of doing this. And some people say, well, you know what? I like food and I want to eat food, and I don't want to be restricted to that's all I can have is this one meatball today. I don't want to have that. I want to be able to go to a restaurant and order steak and potatoes, and I want to be able to do that. And I'm like, okay, that's a perfectly reasonable thing. If you know what you want, then what can I do as your doctor to help you work around that? And so the workaround in that kind of a case is fasting. You just go without for a period of time, and however that works, is something that you're going to work out for yourself. For me, I do 3 days once a month. That's it. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I eat again on Monday, and I do that the first weekend of every month, and it's just automatic now. That's what I do. For other people, I have somebody that Monday is her fast day. So every day she eats Sunday night. She doesn't eat again till Tuesday morning. So she has the whole Monday off, which is actually more than one day, but once a week. And it's keeping her normal, and she can go out and eat and do things and with other people, and not have to be so worried about how many carbs does this have and counting all the time. So there are ways of dealing with this without having to do it just this way. So the book is going to get you close, and it's worked. You've been on phase 1 and you've done miraculously. So now what's the next step? How do you go to the next level? Well, exercise would be a good start, and fasting. Those are two things. Or, and I said, looking for what possible sources of carbs might be getting into diet, or too much protein, lower the protein level.
Sharon said, could you just discuss the connection between high blood sugar and high blood pressure?
Okay. So when your blood sugar is high, it means you're insulin resistant. When you're insulin resistant, sugar can't get across the barriers, and for example, the brain. And studies have been done, especially in women, where their brains, because they have like PCOS, they have insulin resistance. And this is like as early in their 20s. They're already having low levels of glucose in their brain, and their brain is starving at this point, and they're headed for Alzheimer's. So Alzheimer's disease is much more common in women than men. And that's why this study was done. How early can we find this? And they found it way early. So when you're resistant to insulin, it means that you can't get glucose into your brain as well either. So your brain is starving, going, hey, I need more. I'm not getting enough energy here. So raise the blood pressure so that I can get more blood flow. It doesn't work because you don't have glucose transport proteins. It's a totally different problem, but the brain doesn't know that. The brain, all it says is the normal mechanism that the brain has for increasing energy is just to increase blood flow. So it sends your blood pressure up.
All right. We're almost out of time. Okay, Judy said you mentioned that when you are on a 3-day fasting, that your body can eat your muscle cells. So you said exercise. For how long for how long, and you can't exercise 24 hours a day? If it does take muscle cells, is there a recovery period to make more muscle cells, or are they permanently gone?
Oh, okay. Great questions. Okay. No, you don't have to continuously exercise. You just have to be using whatever you're using on a regular basis. So if you're fasting and like before the fast, you're working out and you're fasting for 3 days, you don't have to like work out like all your muscles every single day. It's when you're using things, then those things stay. Whatever's not being used is removed from for autophagy. And so it isn't about continuously fasting. And then, yes, you do lose some muscle, but Dr. Walter Longo did some research on this and found when you start eating again, the first thing to come back is your muscles. If you're exercising regularly, it doesn't have to be. If you're only doing a half an hour a day, like let's say you do HIIT training, like we talk about, for 15 minutes a day, that's all you need. That's all it takes. Those muscles are being used, And because they're being used, they're not going to be taken up. So, but you will lose some. But Dr. Longo showed that the first thing to come back when you start eating again is your muscles, and you don't get fat back until later.
Very interesting. Okay, we're going to end with this because we're out of time. Anonymous said, you say that we should consult with our own doctors, but mine is totally bought and paid for by Big Pharma. She even wanted to put me on statin drugs, even though my cholesterol levels are excellent.
I know, I know. It's so hard because I deal with that all the time. And you know, I get it. I have been reported to the medical board more times than I even know because they don't tell me every time. I've had my license revoked twice. I've been on probation. I've had because they complain about it, say, "Hey, he's taking people off statin drugs, and that should be in the water. Everybody needs to take this stuff." And I'm like, no, 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 no. So yeah, I know. I'm fighting that fight too. And so what you do is you find a doctor that's willing to work with you.
Yeah.
That's I don't know. I don't know any other way, like a functional medicine doctor or something.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Dr. Saunders. We appreciate you. We'll see you next week.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye-bye. There was a question here about someone would like to know how to use the Easy Relief Magnesium to help my diabetes. Um, I don't know the direct correlation, but you can just spray it on. How many sprays? 50 sprays? 30 to 50?
Yeah. All over
Okay.
your body.
Yep. And I like to not use my hands to touch it afterward. Like I'll rub it in like this. I just don't use my hands. I don't like the feeling of my hands for some reason. But any other questions that maybe we could answer? Okay, that's probably it for today. But you can go to bartonwebinar.com, sign up for these webinars, or go to bartonnutrition.com. Use code webinar25 to save 25% on any of the supplements or products that you see there. Uh, that's it. We'll see you all next week. And I forgot I should change this view so you guys can actually see Cheryl. There we go. Okay, there we go. We'll see you guys all next week. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being here, Cheryl. We'll see ya.
Bye.